In 1988, Spike Chunsoft and Enix released what would be the bookend to the first trilogy of DQ games in Dragon Quest III, a game that's seen a multitude of remakes after its initial NES release, from SNES to Game Boy Color, mobile devices, the Wii, PS4, Nintendo 3DS, and Nintendo Switch. Man, that's a lot of games. With that said, we have what appears to be the definitive edition for all current generation platforms in Dragon Quest HD 2D Remake. What's going on, everybody? I'm Joe, and this is my review for Dragon Quest III HD 2D. I think I said 2D HD before. Sorry about that. I think the roles are... You know what? Let's just get to the review. It's taken me 36 years to get around to playing my very first mainline game in a series, with the only knowledge of Dragon Quest being the Game Boy Color title Dragon Warrior Monsters and last year's The Dark Prince. In the best way possible, and you've probably heard this term being tossed around, but it really is JRPG comfort food. It came out at a perfect time, kind of how they dropped Star Ocean Second Story R around early November last year, which you can check out my review in the card up above. In the most sincere way, it's the most traditional turn-based JRPG that I've played all year. Credit where credit is due, Square Enix kept this game as close to the original as it can be, while also implementing a new class type, rebalanced enemies, a whole heck of a lot less grinding, within reason though, we'll talk about that later, and some traditional lore that still manages to breathe new life into the game that came out the same year I was born. Be right back, I gotta get my life alert. What I was most impressed by is how the HD 2D engine continues to give these games the appearance of what I had envisioned in my head of what an NES or a SNES game looked like to me when describing games from that era to someone else. Back in my day! From all the ways they get lighting and shadows to work with the sprites, and how amazing these effects look when you're doing a move on screen. The HD 2D engines come a long way from the days of Octopath Traveler, and that's only 7 years ago. Even comparing this to Live Alive feels like they've polished the engine even more from just a couple years ago. It makes me that much more excited and intrigued by what's to come with the remakes for Dragon Quest 1 and 2. Although my Steam Deck hours are somewhere closer to 50 hours, I think I spent about 40 in-game hours in time total to beat it. Plus I was streaming too, so like you get hit with raids, you throw raid video up, that all takes time, you get lost in conversation, so subtract maybe 5 more on top of that, and we'll just keep it a clean 35 to 40 hours is probably where you're going to be spending your time playing this game. And by the way, I do multi-stream, so whether you're here on YouTube or you're a Twitch viewer that watches YouTube videos after the fact, you can find me live usually Wednesday through Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Hopefully that holds for a while. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, twitch.tv/JoAfterWork, or you can hit the subscribe button here and turn on the notifications bell if you want to see some live streams. After the story's main plot is set in place, the game wastes no time letting you get set up with up to 3 additional party members, where the options really open up with who you'd want to bring along. At Patty's party planning place, say that 3 times fast, you'll have the option to either select the 3 base characters that are ready to go to get you up and running as fast as possible, or you can go to the second floor and create the party you'd want to bring along on your journey and also get to name them as well. You can choose their job class, add some stat points, and you can kind of mess around with the personality trait. I'm sure there's a proper way to manipulate that, but to me it just seemed like it was randomly based around wherever I was manually pumping stats, and then sometimes I try just letting auto pump the points go in and I'd still get the same personality. So if anybody knows out there, please let me know in the comments down below, because I was thoroughly confused by that. The personality can also change throughout the game based on certain equipment, which is super important to read prior, or you sometimes might end up regretting your choices. Later in the game, you'll also find a place where you can change vocations and further help with your personality change if you have the right books to do so. This especially comes in handy in the second half of the game. You sacrifice half their stats as they drop back down to level 1, but the grind isn't nearly as bad as I initially thought. I started the game, including myself, with a warrior, a mage, and a priest, and ended the game with my same warrior and changed my 2 other party members to sages. For the HD 2D version, Koichi Sugiyama's original compositions of Dragon Quest III are immortalized through re-recorded arrangements from the Tokyo Metropolitan Symphony. Whether you're hunting for metal slime, battling bosses, or just visiting towns, the music seems to fit the mood of wherever you're traversing, even in those goofier moments. I think up until the last grind session I had for the final section of the game, I was pretty much listening to the in-game music over my personal playlists. Also, who's with me on personal playlists for grinding in-game? Because that's always been me since I was a little kid playing Pokemon or Final Fantasy VI, and you're just going back and forth doing the battles. Back in my day, oh, I feel my back going down. I would have my Walkman on, and just be playing stuff that I recorded off the radio, and I'd just be going back and forth in like one of the overworlds and just going and back and forth, and just until I can get like as many levels as I possibly can. Same with Pokemon. It was way bigger with Pokemon for me because I really try to get like my entire team level 99, even though it was completely unnecessary. And just going through Indigo Plateau back and forth my entire party. Man, I wish I had more time like that. Sorry for the sidetracking. Moving on, I had to look up the names of the songs after I finished my playthrough, but my personal favorite goes to Hero's Challenge, and I'll leave it at that. Unfortunately, there's no OSTs I've been able to find for the remake compositions as of yet, so hopefully by the time this review drops, someone's compiled a YouTube soundtrack until Square officially releases one. Just hearing these arrangements really made me think back of Shunsuke Kikuchi's compositions of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z series, and I apologize if I butchered his name. I'm really bad at that. I haven't done enough research into it, but I'd have to imagine there were maybe some inspirations pulled from there, given that Akira Toriyama's influence on drawing was there, or maybe that was just what a lot of the compositions of the time were for games and anime. Maybe that can be a cool future topic of some sort that we can look into. I'm straying too far away in this segment, and I apologize. On the constructive side of things, there were still a couple of moments towards the third act of the game where I felt like I hit a difficulty spike, a couple of them actually, with certain areas. And that's when I felt like I was left with like no choice but to grind in order to make it through, as opposed to using a bit of strategy with the tactics function. I can only assume this was part of the original game's intention, because we're not talking like, oh, get good moments in gaming. We're talking, hey, you're actually underleveled even though you took on every battle along your journey up until this point. You will stop here and you will level up until you are ready. In this very rare case, I wasn't completely turned off by this because the moments were very few and far between for me. But I have to mention this because there are those who may not remember or even know of how late 80s, early 90s JRPGs were with difficulty spikes. Whenever I'm streaming, I jokingly call those moments Mount Itoe Viridian Forest sections when a game decides it wants to hard mode somebody for the sake of it. Just throw every enemy every 2 steps, get into every battle, good luck. You may have to run back and get those potions, but by the way, you can't escape these battles because RNG is not on your side. To the contrary, if the remakes of 1 and 2 end up not being as much of a grind fest in that final section of the game, then maybe an implementation of the encounter slider could be added in like they did for Bravely Default, if I remember correctly, and I believe Octopath Traveler had it too. It's been years now, so forgive me if that isn't the case. It could also allow for some neat speedruns and challenges for folks streaming the game. You can even see how creative people might get with their teams. Now, I know the stories of Dragon Quest 1 and 2 being a grind fest to get to the max level to just be strong enough to beat everybody. But don't beat me up, Dragon Quest fans, for mentioning the encounter slider. It's just merely a suggestion of things that are there from previous remakes, remasters that have been brought over the years from Square Enix at this point. So why not see if there is a way, but also trying to balance it out. That's why there's difficulty types, right? There's easy, normal, hard, and all that stuff. Allowing for those kind of not accessibility features, I guess, per se, but being able to not really want to deal with enemies, especially when you're beyond OP. Even having here we go. I can't think of any games off the top of my head, but there are games where like if you're so strong, you just like ram through the enemy. It just like says that you beat the enemy, and I forgive me, I can't even remember what the hell the game is, and I'm in a time crunch to be able to get this out, so I can't like look it up and then come back real quick. But if anybody remembers what game or games there were that did that, something like that goes a million miles. Like it goes such a long way is what I'm getting towards. Overall, this remake of Dragon Quest III is the game that kept my attention with both its story and gameplay the most out of the other 2 Dragon Quest games that I've previously mentioned playing. I understand now why this game is held dear in the hearts of many of those who've enjoyed the entire series. I can also see where this series and Final Fantasy differentiate while also parts equally the same. I hope Square continues this remake train of games, although I know that's a hot topic for a lot of folks, but when you have a giant library of games you can either bring over with this insane HD 2D engine or leave them in the vault, I'm opting for the first option. Not only have we been given amazing journeys like Octopath, it's allowed us to get games unreleased outside of Japan like Live Alive. And I never thought we were gonna get Live Alive. Maybe one day we'll be lucky enough to get more of those like Bahamut Lagoon, or maybe something more familiar like Chrono Trigger. But for now, I'll patiently wait on Dragon Quest 1 and 2 to see how this journey goes. And that's the end of my quest. This is Joe clocking out. Take care, love y'all, and remember, fight for your dreams, and your dreams will fight for you. What's going on, everyone? I hope you enjoyed the review of Dragon Quest 3 2D HD, HD 2D. You know what I'm talking about, the remake. I am trying to get through the remake or break stuff. For those who watch me on Twitch, know what that is. I'm gonna start getting those reviews written up, and hopefully over the next, going into the new year, I should say, we should start getting those out, because we're starting to knock out a good chunk of games, and now I have enough to kind of like start making proper reviews for. So those will probably be the next set of reviews. I started playing Fantasia. I don't know if I'm going to do a review for that one, but you'll be seeing a lot of retro reviews for sure, or remastered games of retro games being reviewed here on the channel. So that's kind of the direction that I kind of feel like going in right now with things. And if retro games are, a thing that you enjoy, then stick around the channel, because there'll be plenty of those. There'll be plenty of streams. And if you've made it through the rest of these credits, I appreciate all of it. So you all have a lovely day, noon, evening, whatever time zone it is, and take care of yourselves. And if you enjoyed all of this, please consider subscribing. I don't know if that little subscribe button did the little chime earlier, so if it didn't and it does it now, then awesome. And give the video a like, share it with your friends, let them know what we do here. We talk about everything retro and gaming after work. Take care, love y'all. Remember, fight for your dreams, and your dreams will fight for you.